And joining me from Singapore is Nawab Osman, a visiting fellow at the University of California, Berkeley, who focuses on Islamic movements in Southeast Asia. And in Hamburg, Germany, we have Sara Bazoobandi. She is a fellow at the Arab Gulf States Institute in Washington, specializing in Saudi economic affairs. So Sara, Nawab, welcome to Straight Talk. It's good to have you on the program. The world's largest Muslim gatherings is limited to about few thousands this year due to the coronavirus outbreak. So Nawab, how will Hajj be like this year?
I think the whole idea of Hajj itself is about a spiritual gathering that brings together Muslims from all around the world. The idea of the Hajj itself is that it is a gathering where everyone would, regardless of what kind of religion, what kind of sectarian background you're from, what kind of ethnic background you're from, or economic background you're from, you are equal in the eyes of God. Now, so what we will have, and often Hajj is a spectacle of colors, of people of various languages. It is a spectacle of diversity, which we will not see this year. I think it will be a more solemn affair. It will be a lot more homogeneous. The people who are allowed to attend are basically going to be the Saudis. And so, yeah, I mean, by the virtue of that alone, the whole idea or the spirit of the Hajj itself, feeling of the Hajj will be very different.
Yeah. So Sara, what impact will this have, in your opinion, on Muslim countries in the Middle East and maybe beyond?
It is a controversial issue because some argue that, especially in the difficult times that the world is going through, we need more spirituality and we need to feel more united and close to one another emotionally and spiritually. But from pragmatic point of view, practically, this is the world's most serious threat at the moment that the human race is facing. Perhaps after the global warming, if I do not want to underplay the issue of global warming. In fact, the sheer seriousness of the issue does not allow any flexibility or any negligence to conduct this year's ceremony in any other way.
So now, do you think some will look to blame Mohammed bin Salman for the scaled down Hajj and how he failed to contain the pandemic? Do you believe there will be some political ramifications for his rule?
No, I think, it's unfair perhaps to blame MBS for the inability to control the coronavirus. I mean, we have had much bigger problems in many other countries around the world in terms of how the virus has been managed. Of course, the number one country that we're all worried about is really the United States of America. But I think the Hajj, although of course it's this religious spiritual gathering that Sara talked about earlier as well. Beyond that, there's a big dimension of Hajj being an important tool for Saudi soft power diplomacy. So every year, for instance, during Hajj, the Saudi government, through various institutions such as the Rabita al-Alam Islami, and also the Saudi government itself, would invite government leaders, would invite academics, would invite religious leaders, community leaders, and so on to come and to be the guests of the king, to be the guests of these institutions. And that, would be a loss of sorts for Saudi Arabia, especially in the context of increasing regional sort of tension. I mean, you have this issue with Iran and to a lesser extent with Turkey as well. Saudi is trying to position itself as the dominant power in the Middle East.
Yes.
And it it's just basically lost one tool of its diplomacy that it could have utilized, especially in a year such as this.
All right. So, Sara, how will this year's restrictions impact the kingdom's already shrinking economy?
The incomes that is generated in Saudi Arabia by what we refer to it as the religious tourism sector is 1/5 of the country's total non-oil revenue. So it is quite a significant amount of revenue that every year is being generated by for the Saudi economy, roughly around over 10 billion euros every year. So that loss is definitely going to be felt, and especially in the current global environment where the global economy is slowing down as a result of the global pandemic. We also have had several years of low oil prices, and Saudi economy being highly dependent on oil income has obviously been, before the pandemic, affected by that. So the world is going through a difficult economic time, so is Saudi Arabia, and tourism sector across the world has been affected by the pandemic. So does the Saudi tourism sector.
So what kind of economic consequences, Nahab, we're likely to see, especially on small and medium scale international tour operators, especially from countries like Pakistan, Indonesia, and Malaysia?
Now, for many of these small travel agencies that basically run these Hajj and Umrah packages, I think there would be a huge loss of income. I mean, many of these agencies will be hard pressed to even survive as a result of this pandemic, because we really don't know whether we might even have Hajj next year or when Umrah is going to be resumed. That's one aspect of this. But the other aspect is what it means for an individual Muslim who wants to perform the pilgrimage. I mean, for someone in Pakistan or Indonesia, it is a lifetime of saving that goes into performing the Hajj. And in the event, and many have basically put down a down payment, if not a full payment for the Hajj and Umrah sort of pilgrimage. There's a possibility that they might actually lose this if these companies go bust, and the potential of it is fairly high. I was in the United States, just earlier this year, and I was speaking to someone who was going for Umrah, and his Umrah package was cancelled. And he was, this was in Austin, Texas, and he was finding it difficult to recover back his down payment. So what more in a place like Malaysia, Indonesia, or Pakistan in that case?
Yes.
So there is that impact at the social level, which could potentially be problematic in some of these countries.
So, Sarah, given the current economic situation and the pandemic, do you believe the MBS will be able to deliver on his promises or ambitious plans mapped out in his so-called 2030 vision?
As I mentioned, the prospect of global growth is quite grim at the moment. It's not specific to Saudi Arabia or the economic strategies of the Saudi Crown Prince. The world is going through a very difficult time, and specifically countries like Saudi Arabia that relied on oil revenue are going to face serious challenges. For example, the IMF has predicted about more than 6% of negative growth for Saudi economy for this fiscal year. In other words, the various factors, the uncertainties that arise from unexpected reasons are affecting Saudi economy perhaps a lot stronger than the power of policymakers and implementation of those policies in Saudi Arabia.
All right, Sarah, Nawab, unfortunately, we're out of time. Thank you very much for joining us on Straight Talk.